All right, so today we continue on with lesson 4.2. Take a look at the problem of the day, pause the video and answer it. When you're ready, move on with the next part of the lesson. Now, today when we continue on with 4.2, we're sort of putting 4.1 and 4.2 all together. We talked about max and mins, and we sort of talked about that in 4.1. If it's A and it opens up, if your A opens up and it's positive, right? So if A is positive, it opens up, you have a minimum point. If your A is negative and it opens down, it's a maximum point. Now, if you notice with every single thing here, to determine the max or min, it's what? It's the vertex. So in A, B, and C, we actually have to find out what the vertex is first before we could talk about max or min. Okay, so if we take a look, we have to remember 3 different ways that we solved for the vertex. If we look at letter A, let's just go through these for a second. The A is always the number in front, regardless of what method I'm looking at. C is in standard form from 4.1. A and B are in either vertex form or intercept form. But you know A is always the number out front. So here in A, that's actually funny, my A is 4. 4 is positive, so we know it's going to open up, right? And if we look at B, my A is -2. It's negative, so it opens down. And in C, my A is 2. It's positive, so it opens up. So you have a basic idea of if it opens up or down. The A is always in front, but that doesn't tell us what the max or min is. So let's start with letter A. A is in vertex form. This is actually the easiest out of all of them. There is no work involved here. My vertex is h comma k, or 1 comma 9. So I start us off with an easy one. So my vertex is 1 comma 9. Now, we talked about once you get the vertex, which this one was pretty easy. Once you get the vertex, you could find out what the max or min is. So let's go over this again. My A is +4, right? It's positive, so it opens up. So if it opens up, it's going to be a minimum, right? Because the vertex will be the lowest point. So we're going to write min at y equals 9. So your max or min is based off of the fact of what your y of the vertex is. And it's a min because 4 is positive, so it opens up. So if it opens up, it's going to be a minimum point. All right, so let's look at B. B is a little bit more work, right? So I'm not going in order of what we learned, but I'm going in order of difficulty. So what we have to find out first, if you look, this is in intercept form. We need to label our P and Q. So you might want to think for a second what P and Q is. P equals -4. Q equals 8. Remember, it's the opposite sign. And we know to find the vertex, and actually I'll label this here. X is going to equal adding them up and averaging them. So -4 plus 8 over 2. So I get -4 plus 8 is 4 over 2, which is 2. So that's the x coordinate of my vertex. But don't forget, we need y as well. And we see y as the min or max as well. So to find the y in this method, I plug 2 back into the original. Actually, I have some space here, so I'll actually type it out for us. And just to do a little review, I simplify the parentheses first. 2 plus 4 is 6. And 2 minus 8 is -6. I simplify them all first before I actually multiply across. And I'm just going to multiply from left to right. I get 72. So my vertex is 2 comma 72. So what does that translate to? All right, so if I take a look back, -2 is negative a. It means it opens down, hence I have a maximum. So max at y equals 72 is my answer. Now for the last one, we go back to lesson 4.1 because it's in standard form. And standard form, if you remember, we use the formula x equals negative b over 2a. So negative b is the middle number here. So negative b, negative 4 over 2 times a. A comes from the front, which is 2. Draw my line here. Negative 4 is 4. I get 4 over 4, which equals 1. Now we have the x. How do we find the y? Well, if you remember, we just plug y or x back in to the original. I actually like this last method. So you sort of see the similarity and differences between each of them. It's important to sort of keep them each straight in your head to make sure you're doing the right one. And check your work for evaluating. You should get -1. So my vertex is 1, -1. And if I look back for a second, my a is what? 2, positive 2. Positive 2 means it opens up, so it's a minimum. Min at y equals 1. That's my answer. So what else can we talk about here? Let's take a look at a word problem, also finding max and min. It says in example 6, the path of a place-kicked football can be modeled by the function y equals negative 0.026x times the quantity x minus 46, where x is the horizontal distance in yards, and y is the corresponding height in yards. How far is the football kicked is the first question. Now, take a look at a little diagram down here. What I like about the quadratic formula or quadratic graphs, functions, whatever you want to call them, is it mimics real life. Kicking a football, throwing a ball, whatnot, because of gravity. If you kick a football, it goes up, 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 up to some point up here, and then gravity kicks in, pulling it back down to the ground. So anything you do, throwing a ball, kicking a ball, whatnot, mimics a parabola, which is nice. Now, before we even start anything, because we talk about how far is it kicked, what is its maximum height. If you look at the graph here, obviously this is the maximum point, the vertex, right? So a couple things to sort of keep in mind here. Now, before I answer the question at all, I want to rewrite this form because it might not, from the beginning, you might not realize what form is it. Is it in standard, intercept, or vertex form? It's actually an intercept form, and like I said, it's going to be hard to see. So let me rewrite it over here for us. And I'll move it over. Do you see how this one here is just x? There's no other parenthesis. It's by itself. You could change it to x minus 0. If I set it up this way, you have 2 parentheses. It's an intercept form, right? And you can start to develop the problem from there. So sometimes, now obviously if it's 0, we don't need to write the x minus 0. But it's nice to see it that way to have it make a little more sense. Now, let's talk about the first part. How far is the football kicked? Let's start off by finding our P's and Q's. So you might want to pause the video to remember how to find your P and Q. P is the first one. It's 0. And then Q should be 46. So I have these 2 numbers here. Now, these are my, if I was going to graph it, I know there's a graph on the bottom, but if I was going to graph it, what would they be? It would be my x-intercepts. So simply, 0 should be here. I'll write on the graph. And the other number should be 46. Let's think about that for a minute. That makes sense, right? Because the first one's 0. You started, you kick the football. It's 0 spaces away. And it goes up in the air and it comes back down and it hits at 46 yards later on. So one of these numbers is how far my football is kicked. Hopefully you see this from the problem, but it should be 46 yards. Once again, because I start at 0, I end at 46. So here it's just finding one of the intercepts of the parabola. Now the B, what is the football's maximum height? We know it's a maximum because let's take a look. My A is negative 0.026. Negative means it opens down, so my highest point is at the maximum, the vertex. So simply what we're going to do from here is actually use our formula to find the vertex and find the y to it. Well, we know to find the vertex, we need to find x first. X is adding up p plus q and taking the average of it, which means dividing by 2. 0 plus 46 is 46 over 2, which is 23. So my x is 23. From there, what do? We take x and plug it back into the original function. And you can plug it in here or here. Maybe to avoid confusion, I will plug it in with the second one that I rewrote for us, which is the x minus 0. Not that you need to. I mean, you're going to get the same thing either way. And make sure you take a second to pause the video and to evaluate this. You're going to get a decimal because once again with word problems in a real life situation, it's not always going to work out nice. Think about 13.6, or excuse me, 13.8 I should say. So what does that 13.8 mean? The maximum is at, so max height at 13.8 yards. So if I write the vertex here, I have the point 23, so 23, comma 13.8. The maximum height is decently high, right? For a person to kick a football, it's 13.8 yards. Now, for the last kind of problem here, we're going to take a look at sort of an Algebra 1 review. You know, we talked about standard form, intercept form, vertex form. And now what if we want to evaluate it where we want to multiply it out to get standard form? So this is something you did in Algebra 1 called FOIL. So example 7, Algebra 1 review, write the quadratic function in standard form. So if we look at our first one, it's going to be FOIL we're going to use. You have your first, outer, inner, last, binomial to binomial here. So when I multiply, I start here. X times x is x squared. Then the next part I do is I take, and maybe I should write this here, hope you remember FOIL. F stood for first, outer is next. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Then I stands for inner, and I'll write it down here so you can see it. 2 times x is positive 2x. And then last is 2 times negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And from here, we're going to combine like terms. We see the OI of FOIL, they are alike. So y equals x squared stays exactly as it is. Negative 3x plus 2 and x is negative x. And then minus 6, and that's our answer. So y equals x squared minus x minus 6. So we're taking something that was in intercept form, with the two sets of parentheses, and we're writing it back in the original standard form. Now in letter B, if you take a look here, it's almost the same except what? You have a number in front. So I want you to pause the video and try it yourself. You're going to actually do FOIL first, leave in the 3 in front, and then you're going to multiply or distribute it through. All right, so like I said, with the next one, we're going to start off. by taking care of the 3 last. So first, x times x is x squared. So keep the 3 there. All right, x squared. And then the next one is x times 6, which is 6x. Oops. Because you had the outer, then inner, negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And last is negative 4 times 6, which is negative 24. So keep the 3, combine like terms inside. We could combine the OI. 6x minus 4x is positive 2x. And then the last step, you're going to take that 3 and distribute it to all parts. So you get 3x squared plus 6x. And then 3 times negative 24 is negative 72. And that's your answer. So we go from FOIL here to FOIL with an actual 3 to multiply by the outside. Now let's take a look at the next one. If you look at C, it's in vertex form, right? Now vertex form, you have a 5, the A in front, and you have x minus 1 quantity squared. Don't forget quantity squared. We're going to rewrite it first. So keep the 5 of x minus 1, but quantity squared means we write it twice. So I want you to take the second to actually rewrite it with x minus 1 times x minus 1. And then we're going to do FOIL. And actually what's interesting about this one is what does it look like? It looks like letter B with a number in front. So depending on what other parts you have to it, whether or not you have a number off to the right, it's sort of the same idea. So, okay. So keep the 5. You might want to pause the video to solve it first. I'm not going to talk too much through this one since we've done the last couple, but see what you could get. So we do FOIL again. Check your work. This is what we should get for FOIL. Combine the OI, combine like terms. And then when we get to this point, you can actually distribute the 5, and I'll write it over here so you can see it. Distribute the 5 to everything. And that's our final answer in standard form. Y equals 5x squared minus 10x plus 5. Now, D is the same thing. It's actually still in vertex form, but we had no K or no Y off to the right. Now we do. So it's the same thing like C, but once you would get to this part here, you still have a number off to the right, you'll just come add it. So let's see. Pause the video to try to do it yourself first. I'm going to write it out twice. That's what quantity squared means, and then plus 4 is off to the side. So we'll FOIL first, and we'll distribute the 2 to whatever we have, and then add 4. So let's see what we get here. Combine like terms. Now, just like before, we'll distribute the 2 to everything. And that's from distributing the 2 to everything. And now because I distributed, I don't need parentheses anymore. I could just bring it down to plus 4. And the last step here is we're going to add 18 plus 4. And that is actually my final answer. Y equals 2x squared plus 12x plus 22. And as you see with all 4 parts, A, B, C, and D, we took it from Vertex or Intercept form and we converted it back to standard form using FOIL, something you learned in Algebra 1. All right, that's it for today. Last part. We have 3 problems. Problem of the day. 2, we take the word problem with the football and we change the equation to answer it. And then 3, write the quadratic function in standard form. And that's it for today.